2140 SuperLux is a piece of Soviet happiness and comfort. Just look at it. Velour, beautiful plastic, electronic clock, and a bit of domestic tuning. Back then, they really knew how to add a certain charm to a car. It's an amazing car, even if it's a bit cramped. Once again, Moskvich. Once again, the SL, and of course it's unique, and of course it's a time capsule, and of course it has the fuel tank in the middle, but more on that later. For now, yes, I know it's been done before, but I still decided to reshoot it. The reason is simple. This particular car, you see, has some nice differences, and it's closer to the original idea. And the idea behind creating this car was simple. To rejuvenate, to give a strong refresh to. The aging 2140. The world was changing. New models were appearing. New technologies, new trends. But the USSR was basically producing a car from the mid-1960s. And just for the record, the blessed 70s were already coming to an end. Why blessed? Well, first of all, I was born. Secondly, the Cultural Revolution in China had ended. The Vietnam War was over. In the 1980s, a decree was issued to intensify the fight against drunkenness and alcoholism. We got our first Soviet multiprocessor supercomputer, the Elbrus II. We got the personal computer, the Apple II. You see, it was the perfect time to update the Moskvich. The update process began in 1977. The first prototypes of the magnificent SL2140 were ready by the following year. Mass production began in the Olympic year. The Olympic one. By the way, that's also when the VAZ 2105 appeared. But I'm not hinting at anything. But the Moskvich was lander than the Piatak, the fourth. The VAZ was 4,128 millimeters, while ours was 4,250 millimeters. And it was 34 millimeters taller, but 70 millimeters narrower. It doesn't seem like much, but more on that later. Either way, even if the car was becoming morally outdated, it still met the global safety standards at the time. For example, the door handles on the 2140 are flush with the body, and the letter E on the right side of the plate under the hood, the plate, by the way, has worn off over time, means that the 2140 complies with European standards. The full name is 2141-17 SuperLux, or 2141 SL. And also 1500 SL for the bourgeoisie, that's the export version. But what exactly makes the SuperLux different? Essentially, it's the decor. At first, our Soviet comrades asked the Americans for a considerable sum in freely convertible foreign currency to design it. They drew it. Our people didn't like it or couldn't reproduce it, it doesn't matter. What's important is that they did the work themselves and were paid in rubles. Razanov became the main one in appearance. Nikita Evgenyevich. Let's start with the exterior. And you, noble dons, will understand that Moskvich was #1 in the domestic auto industry. Some ideas invented in Moscow later migrated to other manufacturers. For example, the bumpers. Or bumpers if you prefer. They're made of plastic. They finally covered up all those rough seams. They got turn signals and parking lights. A silver strip of steel covered the upper part of the bumper, giving the front end a certain signature look. Something similar, though much simpler and cheaper, would appear on the VAZ 2107 in 1982. But to be fair, it's worth noting that the plastic body kit was produced by the Yugoslav company Saturnus. We gave them cars, they gave us car parts. Let's take another look at the car from the front. After all, it's the little things that create the overall image. And with the Lux, that image finally came together. Take this for example, a small detail, barely noticeable, but already stylish. I'm talking about the wheels, or let's say the hubcaps. The wheels changed. The tabs for attaching the chrome disc disappeared. In their place came a black plastic cap. In general, black replaced the chrome shine in many places. The radiator grille features the minimalist AZLK lettering. The door frames have turned left. A streak of molding runs across the body, visually dividing it. but the fuel tank is still in the same place. Well, it's convenient. You can pull up to the pump from either side. But that's all just minor technical details. But the rear lights are constructed entirely out of polycarbonate, and they're truly remarkable to behold. To finish up with the exterior, it's also worth noting the body-colored ventilation grills. Nothing significant could be done with the trunk compartment. I'm talking about its 350-liter capacity. That wasn't much for those times. Ideally, it was wrapped in plastic, like ours, which is advantageous from an aesthetic point of view. I see, Alexander, you use good oil. Uncle Vanya, you just put it in yourself. Yeah, so what? I know what to recommend to friends. By the way, there will be a link to this oil in the description. Oh, I don't like this attraction. Welcome to the back seat. And these Moskvich handles too. I don't like it, but for the sake of the experiment's purity. The seating material is remarkably soft, and your half cheek will not constantly bump against the wheel arch. In fact, it remains surprisingly comfortable if there's a small gnome sitting in front and a vast amount of empty space to your right side. Please notice, even the original factory plastic covers are still perfectly intact on the door panels. The interior trim is changed radically, as much as possible. The beauty of the new interior was crafted by an artist, in the best sense of the word, Alexander Sorokin, under the careful guidance of the chief designer. And for its time, it turned out great. Why didn't I move to the front? For two reasons. The first reason is you, and the second is all your dreams. I mentioned that this is an early model. So here, the headrests are plastic but soft, and the upholstery is a bit different too. Well, would you look at that? An ashtray. The seats have gained a pleasant tactile feel thanks to the upholstery. The carpet is plush and creates a sense of luxury in the cabin, something unknown to the Soviet person. In other words, it feels rich. The earlier version was even more luxurious. The carpets even hung on the doors. The seat has a stepless reclining adjustment. This is something the Zhugoli will never have. The Sputniks, but that's a bit later. Notice the low dashboard. Reminds you of the one in the Vosmerka, right? But the Vosmerka will only come out in 4 years. If you look closely, the door panels, by the way, matching the interior color, form a single line with the dashboard. This is what you call a design solution. Hats off. Visually, it's all awesome. The center console doesn't connect to the central tunnel, it floats above it. By the way, Stadt found a radio receiver, the A275 from the Murom radio factory. I think they're still making them to this day. But we've got a foreign gadget installed. The door handle. Now, a trigger. Not very convenient, but you can also use it to lock the door. There's no button. Rear window defroster. By the way, the vent window is gone. Time to open the hood. I don't really want to, but it's tradition. Gotta do it. Under it is a gasoline inline 4-cylinder engine with a displacement of 1,480 cubic centimeters. Maximum power is 75 horsepower at 5,800 revolutions per minute. Maximum torque is 107.9 Newton meters at 3,400 to 3,800 revolutions per minute. V-shaped valve arrangement, driven by rocker arms. A distinctive feature, cast iron sleeves in an aluminum black. And also on the Lux, they installed, well, you know from whom, a distributor, a licensed one from Bosch. The plate is blue, not black. It used to be blue anyway. Should I talk about BMW? Alright, bubble. We have only one way to go, forward and only forward. Anyone who has ever driven a Moskvich behind the wheel will remember this moment forever. This is not your typical uniform Zhiguli, and I'm not criticizing or praising any particular brand here. Both are great in their own way, but the Moskvich is a bit different. First of all, the Moskvich is a car for tall, long-legged people, but with narrow shoulders, because a wide friend next to you is a problem. But in general, all these impressions are purely personal and not objective. But here's something that is definitely objective. The 2140 SL accelerates a bit more cheerfully than the regular 2140. One of the reasons is simple and purely mechanical. The rear axle has a gear ratio of 3.89. I called it the high-speed version and later started installing it on the regular model as well. 2140. An archaic suspension, like on a comfortable carriage. How can you even compare it to modern ones? This is a component built to last forever. This component fills the soul with delight. Once this knot is tied, it will never come undone. If you don't understand what I mean, I feel sorry for you. The model was produced for a short time, until 1987. The Lux version left the assembly line even earlier than its tough sibling, the 40th. Was it popular? Not as much as one would hope, but it allowed the factory to hold on with dignity until the release of the then modern AZLK 2141. In conclusion, today a Moskvich can be not only a Moskvich, but that doesn't matter. There's no need to be ashamed of dark times, no need to make excuses, explain, or campaign. Just honestly do your job. And then the Moskvich will be reborn and there will be happiness. I hope so. Let's continue.